Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Chautauqua virtual concert series. It is indeed an honor to have with us a very special guest, Ara Dinkjian, okay, or close thereabouts, okay. And I have fallen in love with learning of his musical background, of his Armenian culture. Um, he's so well accomplished, and it's just what Chautauqua is all about. And um, and I think one of the things is there were three things that just absolutely grabbed me. I would have given anything to have been at the closing ceremonies in Athens um, as they're playing your song, um, and and of course there was that other, and I should wait till later, where you had 1 million people singing to your music in celebration of peace. Um, and I just think about those kinds of things. And I just think about our little world here in small little Greensburg, Indiana, and you taking the time um, to share with us your story, that instrument I had never heard of before a month ago called the oud, with I think it's just fantastic. Ara, welcome to Greensburg, Indiana, virtually.
Thank you so much, John. I want to begin by thanking you for inviting me to participate in this great event that you've been doing for many years now. As I learned about it, it became obvious that this is something that I want to be part of. And just to kind of respond to some of the things you mentioned, um, I'm born in New Jersey, but my Armenian identity, my culture, my history is of paramount importance in my life. It's church, it's the food, the music, the language. As a matter of fact, the first CD that I made on my own, I called it An Armenian in America because that's how I consider myself. Um, and now I'll tell you a little bit about the instrument that I play. It's called the oud. So I guess you could say that I'm a nudist. That's our oud joke there. Um, it is an ancient instrument. It goes back to Mesopotamia, 1500 BC. It is considered the father of the lute and the grandfather of the guitar. Um, Both of those instruments are chordal because they have frets. Frets like on the guitar. Here, I'll show you the neck of a guitar. You see those lines. So you form chords and you put your fingers in between those frets and it stops the string at that line. Well, the oud, which is much more ancient, as you can hopefully see, does not have frets. It's fretless. And in that way, it's closer to the violin or cello. And the reason for this is that we use microtonal scales. Now, in Western music and virtually every music that we listen to, we work on a 12-tone system, which you'll find on the piano or on the guitar. But the ancient modes have notes in between the notes. So sometimes when I play, you might think it sounds out of tune, but it's actually quite intentional. And just a little uh, point about that, Pythagoras, the great mathematician, discovered something that's called the harmonic series that exists in nature. If you pull any string and pluck it, it has certain characteristics. You would first hear the fundamental, the basic tone. But if you listen closely, you'll also hear the octave above that, the fifth above that, the octave again above that, and then here's where it gets interesting. You'll hear the third, but the third is a little bit flat. at least to our modern ears. But when I play a third on my instrument, I play it a little bit flat. So what I'm trying to say is these ancient instruments are actually more in tune with the earth and with nature. We've kind of artificially straightened all of that out with during Bach's time with the well-tempered clavier, where we divided the octave into 12 equal intervals. But I don't want to get too technical. I just want to say that you might hear some notes that might sound a little out of tune to you, but if you grow up with it or if you get used to it, it's almost like the blues. You know, there's certain, we call it a blue note. When Aretha Franklin sings, she's hitting a certain note that other singers don't hit. It's in between those notes, and it makes us feel something. Well, in Armenian culture and Middle Eastern culture, where this instrument, by the way, is the king. I mean, amongst Arabs and Turks and Greeks and Jews and you name it, this is the king of instruments. We work not on a diatonic system, but on a modal system. And so all these pieces that you'll hear, except for one, which I'll describe in a little while, are based on that microtonal modal music. I pluck the instrument with, well, it's really a long piece of plastic, but traditionally we would use an eagle feather. Well, of course, we kind of frown on killing an eagle for their feathers so we could play the oud these days. We don't use these anymore, and it's not practical because they're very brittle. I happen to have one that's about 80 years old to show you, and the only interesting thing about that is when an oud player would play in the old days with an eagle feather, of course, the nub would be on the string, but the feather would be on the other side of his hand, and if he played real fast, that feather would be flapping, and you would say, oh, what a virtuoso, just based on how that feather was flapping. It was like a visual thing. Well, you won't see that today because I'm using my trusty old plastic pick. The only other thing that I'll say is that why am I playing the oud? I mean, certainly I've been playing it since I'm a little child. It certainly wasn't going to get me any girls in New Jersey. It wasn't going to make me any money. It wasn't going to make me popular. Here's the story behind that. When I was a little child, and I'm talking about 3 and 4 years old, my parents told me, you could go into any room in the house, but you can't go into our bedroom because there's this very delicate instrument and you're not allowed to touch that. You could touch anything else in the house, but not that. Well, that's it. It was the only thing I wanted to touch because it was taboo. But there's another more personal story, which is that my father, who was a renowned Armenian folk and liturgical singer, he's 91 and still active. As a matter of fact, he just won the fellowship of the National Endowment for the Arts in recognition of keeping the Armenian culture alive in America. My father was an orphan. He doesn't remember his father. His father died when he was 1. And he barely remembers his mother because she died soon after that. So he was raised by his godparents. My father and I went to France when I was 20 to do a concert for the Armenian community there. And an old lady came up to my father and said, I knew your real parents. Would you like to come to my house and I'll tell you everything that I remember? Well, this was the biggest treasure you could ask for because he didn't have any information about his father. So even if the lady just told him he wore his hat like this, at least it would be something that we could hold on to. Well, we went to that old lady's house and she said to my father, she said, your mother had a beautiful voice and she would sing, and your father played the oud. And I burst into tears because it was as if somebody was reaffirming all the feelings that I had in me. Why do I want to play this instrument? I don't know, but I just want to. Well, it turns out it was in my genes. It was in my blood. My grandfather played the oud. That lady gave me my greatest gift, which was the direction. Make sure you follow what's in your heart. You may not ever know why you think that girl is pretty or why you like that food and nobody else does. But there's a reason for it. Anyway, I think I'll stop talking now and maybe play a little bit. Um, I'll play 7 pieces for you today. And before each piece, I will kind of introduce the piece with a short improvisation in that mode. That improvisation is referred to as a taksim, but it just kind of gives the listener the idea of what mode they're going to listen to. And the first piece I will play is called Kara Toprak. It was written by a minstrel, a troubadour who would go village to village, basically being like a living newspaper and historian. You would welcome that troubadour to your village, you would feed him, and in return, he would sing you current events from other villages or historic poems. And this piece is called Kara Toprak, which means black earth. Okay. I had a group called Night Ark, and we miraculously were signed to RCA Records. And for my first record, I had written all of the music, but I thought, wow, if anybody sees the songs like on the back of the record in the music store, they're not going to recognize anything and they won't take a chance and buy it. So why don't I put a Beatles song on it, playing the Beatles song on the oud. This way they might recognize it, buy the record, and then I got them with my own music, hopefully. So that was my thought, and I think I recorded Blackbird. But for you today, again, to kind of bring you closer to understanding my instrument, I think I'm going to play Over the Rainbow, but in my own style, on my instrument. And again, as with all the pieces, I'll start with a little improvisation in that mode. So maybe you have an idea now of what the oud is in relation to Western music. So now we're going to move on back to the East. One element that's unique with our music that I haven't mentioned yet is we'll use the term odd time signatures. Most Western music is based on duple or triple meter. In other words, 4/4, 2/4, 3/4, 6/8. But in the Middle East, we have 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, 9/8, 10/8, and even 11/8. This next piece that I'll play is a folk dance called Tamzara, and it is in 9/8 in groups of 4 plus 5. And again, I'll start with a little improvisation. There we go. Okay, the next piece I wrote when I was on an extended stay. I was working in Greece for 3 months, and I ran out of reading material in English, and I was begging everybody and anybody for any book in English. And somebody gave me a book on Greek mythology. Great, okay, something to read. And one of the stories just really hit me very hard. You have to understand, I want to be delicate about this. I was away from my wife for 3 months, stuck in a hotel room by myself, and I'm reading this book. And this particular story was about a Greek goddess who comes into the bedroom of, um, of a young man who's innocently sleeping, and she gets in the bed with him, but she's invisible. So he felt her but didn't see her. Well, this was a very powerful image. Please forgive if it's going too far there, but I wrote this piece called The Invisible Lover, and it's in 7. No, I'm sorry, it's in 6, uh, in groups of 4 plus 2. And that beat is called a tsamiko, which is prominent in Greece. So I was very inspired by Greek food and the Greek dancing, and it's called The Invisible Lover. The other thing I'll say about it before I improvise is the mode is called Hijaz, and it has this extended, we call it an augmented second, a very wide interval in it, which is very characteristic of much of the music there. So it'll be a little different for your ears. That's The Invisible Lover. We'll now go to a piece that I wrote. And actually, if you don't mind, I'll just tell you that I feel so fortunate to have music in my life, especially during difficult moments. Um, it always seems to comfort me, and express things that I otherwise would not know how to express. Actually, I think it might have been during that same trip in Greece. I received a phone call from my wife telling me that a dear friend had just passed away. I'm stuck in Greece, and I'm suffering. And I went to my instrument, and this piece came to me, written for my departed friend. And once again, music. Thank God for music. That's all I could say. Okay, thank you. Okay, the next piece. The next piece actually is interesting because, again, we go to a very odd time signature. It happens to be my favorite time signature because it's the predominant beat in the city that my ancestors are from. In this case, it's called Dikranagert, and the time signature is 10-8, and it's subdivided like this: 3 plus 2 plus 2 plus 3. That's one measure: 3, 2, 2, 3. And I wrote this piece. It's called Slide Dance, and it's in 10-8. And here we go. No introduction on this one. I'll just go right into it. Okay. I'm kind of looking at the clock. I have one more piece, but if you think it's better, John, I'll ask you. We can go to question and answer.
Let's do some question and answer. And
Okay.
I know my students have been busy preparing you with a few questions, and we've got folks out there in the community as well. If they post it in the Q&A, I'd be happy to read them off to you. So
Great.
I think I got a couple of them coming up for you.
All right, great.
Good afternoon. My
Hello.
name is Elena, and my question for you is there a meaning behind the band name Night Ark, and if so, what is it?
Thank you for that wonderful question. Yes, indeed, there is a meaning. The ark, of course, we know from the book of Genesis, and the ark landed on Mount Ararat. Mount Ararat is the symbol of the Armenian people. Um, my name derives from that. And so I wanted a group name that reflected my culture, but without being overtly Armenian. so because I didn't want to alienate anybody, especially since the group was kind of a mixture of a lot of things. So I thought the ark was the perfect symbol because it kind of represents a vessel of rescue, and we're always trying to save our culture from oblivion. And the night part is only because, especially back then, these melodies came to me when it was quiet and dark and when I didn't have anything else stimulating my eyes or ears. So the songs usually came to me at night. So I call the band Night Ark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello,
Hello.
my name's Nate, and my question for you is, where do you get the inspiration for your music?
Thank you, Nate. Thank you for the question. Nate, I believe that the thing about music is it really shows what we all have in common. When I say all, virtually any human being. The human experience is what inspires these pieces. Uh, the love for somebody that doesn't love you. The sadness when somebody you love dies. The joy at the birth of your child. Uh, your fear of the unknown. All of these things we all experience, that and a million other things, and they're all the subjects of my pieces. Just plainly saying this, the human experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is
Hi.
Ponte, and my question is, who has been your favorite musician to work with?
Well, that's kind of easy. I grew up on the stage accompanying my father. I was accompanying him professionally when I was 5 years old, and he's 91 now, and I still accompany him. He's my idol and my teacher, and my favorite person to make music with. Thanks for asking.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Hi, my name is
Hello.
Sarah. My question for you is, what is the biggest takeaway you want people to take away from your music?
Wow, great question, and thank you for asking it. There are so many forces in our lives that divide us. They could be political, they could be religious, they could be racial. There's all sorts of forces out there. I want not just my music, but music in general, to remind us of what it is to be human. Um, there are certain cultures and certain times that to be a musician was a very low class thing. But I've always been very proud because I think it's something that unites us all. That people from around the world could love the same melody. Well, what does that mean? It means that we all share something in common. So that's what I'm trying to do with the music, is to unite.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Zara. My question for you is, what other musicians inspire you the most?
Great question. I'm not bragging, but actually I'm kind of confessing I'm a fanatical, some people say sick record collector. I have about 10,000 records, and I'm not exaggerating when I tell you they are in every genre, every category, not of just music, but I even have records of bird songs, whale songs, wolves howling. I even have a Marcel record. He's a mime. The whole record is silent. Um, I know it sounds crazy, but I'm inspired by the windshield wipers on my car. I'm inspired by the birds singing, this incredible melody. Um, so I don't know. I think I'm not trying to avoid your question, but I guess if I have to choose a category of musician. It's one who is unique unto themselves. I'm impressed with people who have learned what other people have done in the past and have mastered it, but I'm more impressed with somebody who creates something that hasn't existed before. So I like those oddball musicians who, even if you don't like them, they're doing their own sound or their own idea. Those are the musicians that I admire the most.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Josie, and my question for you is, do you feel like you can compare yourself to your father while you're performing?
Wow. Wow. I let other people compare or rate or whatever. Um, when I'm accompanying my father, I'm not even thinking. Actually, I have to tell you, the best music is performed when the brain is turned off. I personally believe the brain could be an enemy of music. When you're conscious of what you're doing, when you're thinking of something. But I will share one story with you now that you bring it up. We were in the city in which my grandparents were born. My father had never seen it before, but I took him there when he was 75 years old. This is that city I was telling about, Dinata. We were asked to perform there, and there was thousands of people, and my father was singing the songs that were born in that city but had been in exile. My father had kept those songs alive in America. It's a long political warlike kind of story, but I won't bore you with that. But my father brought those songs back to the city in which they were born. And I was, of course, he's in front of me singing to the people. So I see his back and I'm accompanying him. And my father's a little tiny guy. And there's thousands of people looking at him, like welcoming him back, for the first time. And I did something very unprofessional. There was about 15 musicians on the stage and they all admired me. And I looked at them and we were playing and I said, don't ever do what I'm about to do. And I reached into my pocket and I took out my camera and I took a picture of the back of my father singing to these thousands of people. It was an unprofessional thing, but it was the point of view only I could see, and I never wanted to forget it. So I guess sometimes I do think about it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Ara, and as I'm looking at some of the last questions, here's one. What is your most popular song that you've done?
Well, certainly that one that was performed at the closing ceremonies of the Athens Olympics has to be up there. But I want to mention another one. I call it Picture. But John, it's been recorded in about 9 or 10 different languages.
Wow.
And many of those languages are of peoples who are at war with each other, who historically don't like each other, hate each other. And yet they're singing the same melody. And it goes back to one of the questions that was asked before. What is it that I want from my music? Well, that's it right there. It's to remind us that, we all love our children the same way. We all mourn our losses the same way. If we concentrate on what we have in common, we might be able to get along a little better. And I think music is the absolute ideal way to do that.
Ara, do you ever get requested to do a little Beatles?
I am a Beatle maniac. Like I told you on that first Night Ark record, I put Blackbird on there. I'm a Beatle maniac. I'm trying to get my other group, Secret Trio, to do some Beatles songs. Hopefully they'll go for it. Well,
this Q&A has been a lot of fun, and I would be honored if you would grace us with another number.
Okay, I will then play that song Picture for you. And again, thank you for having me.
All right, Gian. You know, one of these days we're going to have to convince you to visit us here in Greensburg, Indiana. That was just a wonderful hour, and we can't thank you enough.
You wouldn't have to work hard to convince me. You're very kind, and I thank you for your hospitality. I wish you the best of health and luck and productivity. And thanks again, John.
Thank
And
you.
everybody that listened. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We loved it. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too. Thanks again.